Good morning, good afternoon, guys, and welcome. Happy Monday. I hope you all have had a fantastic weekend. Hope you're all having a good day so far. It's great to see everybody. Start of the new week, and I thought what we should do is start it off in the best possible way. And I've got a fantastic guest joining me today. But before I bring him on, let me say hi to everybody. We have got Brightest Day. Good morning. We've got Chris Persia and Mark. Hello, Bash Brothers. Good morning, guys. We've got Jim the Viking. Good afternoon. Good to see you. Ren Zero. Good morning to you. Snorter Poopers. Hello. Good to see you. Gun Bunny. Hello, lovely. Keely Chow. Roll Tide Keely. Good to see you. We've got Firefly and we've got Colin. Hello, guys. Good to see you. TJ and Ronnie G, hello, good to see you. Zavropium, good morning. Great show you guys did just on Loki's channel. Really got everybody pumped up this morning. Let me see who else has joined. Mary, hello, Mary. Good morning, lovely. Good to see you. And I know I've seen Leah Rose. Hello, Leah. Good to see you. Pat S, good morning to you as well. D-Bud Martin, hello. Good to see you. Let's scroll up and make sure I'm not missing anyone. Psychodorf 9, hello. Good to see you. Good morning. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Lady Toriel, hello, Lady Toriel. Good morning, sweetheart. Good to see you. I hope everybody is having a good one. So, guys, as I say, and as the thumbnail showed, wanted to talk fantasy today, and I couldn't think of a better person to ask to join me. He is a real fantasy aficionado. He knows the ins and outs, and he's a huge, huge fan of Star Wars as well. So let me bring him on. It is Stig Kenobi. Hello.
Hi. Hi. I also
Hey.
like it. I also like fishing.
I know nothing about fishing, so you could educate me on that one.
Yeah, you toss the hook into the water, attach to a line, and hope something bites.
And hello to Project Storytime and TZ Canadian. Hey guys, good to see you. So, as I was just saying, wanted to kind of start the week on a high, something that, a positive, well, hopefully something positive we can talk about. And I thought, we don't talk about the genre of fantasy very often. Now, there's a lot of kind of fantasy out there, TV wise, lots of films. What was your first kind of introduction into it?
Well, back then I didn't even know it was a genre, right? Because it was everywhere. So I just thought it was, superhero-ish. But my introduction, I think, would be Conan, the old
Oh,
Savage Sword of Conan comics. They were pretty big in Norway, and it said on the cover that comic for adults, which when you're a kid, that makes you want to read it, but you're not
yes,
supposed to. Yeah,
yes, forbidden
uh,
fruit.
yeah. And then later on, someone told me to read The Lord of the Rings. I was in
Ah,
middle school, and I borrowed it at the school library. I was like, at first, I was like, "What's this?" Hobbits and stuff, and they're like dancing and singing. What's this? And then it got good, you know.
yes. Now, did,
And
did you
a
read
lot
Lord of
of
the Rings or The Hobbit first?
The Lord of the Rings.
Ah,
Yeah, and then a lot of video games were part of the fantasy genre, right? Because computer
absolutely.
role playing games and stuff like that. I was hooked on those.
That is pretty cool. And let me just grab this, and a big, big thank you to Brightest Day. Thank you, honey. He sends us a super sticker, and it's a Shiba Inu with the heart. So big, big thank you. Much appreciated. Um, we were talking in the green room, and you said that you're also a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons.
Um, kind of,
hmm
because a lot of the old video games use that rule set, right? So
Yeah.
it just became like a natural thing because my computer role playing game addiction just sucked me into it. So yeah, um, I'm not a huge fan now, but I still every Sunday I run a D&D game through StreamYard. It's me and Nina Infinity. Um, OG Star Wars, OG, Mora Jade,
Oh
and
yeah.
Miss Martin Muses.
Oh, that's an awesome.
Yeah,
And hello
I'm
to Miss Martin Muses as well in the chat. Good to see you, sweetheart. Hello.
yeah. So I'm really sexist. I'm hosting a D&D game for 4 women.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds kind of misogynistic. It's got to be said.
Yeah, it's really bad of me. We've been at it for a year though. I think we did D&D first, and then we did now we're doing the Conan rules. So
Oh, that is awesome. I love the idea of people just getting together once a week and being able to play something that they really enjoy as a group. That is
yeah,
so
I
cool.
I figured since COVID happened last year, right, and people weren't
Hmm.
getting to see their friends and family and hang out and do social stuff. I was like, well, maybe we should play D&D on Sundays and just you know disconnect a little bit. You know.
How, how have you found it playing it kind of remotely? Is it a big change to being able to be, to sit down as a group at a table, or does it just kind of just flow normally?
Um, it's pretty much the same, I guess. But me being the DM, I have to describe things a bit more because we don't have
Hmm.
the a battle map with miniatures or what have you, right? So it's just nah, it works. And if if the players are, if I'm not clear on things, the players will just ask, right?
Absolutely. But the main thing is that you get together and that you can have fun, and that is
Yeah,
cool. Like you say,
yeah,
because of what happened with the coup, I think everybody was feeling they were feeling kind of like cabin fever, and people just needed something to reconnect with. Um, for me, this is why I started the channel, for example. I needed to be able to kind of reach out and talk to people.
yeah. That's kind of why I'm on YouTube at all, because I'm not a YouTuber,
Hmm.
But I got dragged in from the chat, and then people started tossing me around between channels, and I'm having a problem saying no. And that was 3 years ago. So I'm not. I was only going to be on once because someone wanted to have my take on something, and then yeah, that's what happened.
That's how it goes. Yeah, you just
Yeah,
say, "Yep, I'll just do the one stream."
yeah,
Just to try it out. Three
yeah.
years
It
later, yes.
literally happened because I said something in a chat, and someone thought it made sense, and then I'm shit at saying no. So yeah, 3 years later, I'm still on YouTube. But
How have
I do it
you?
because I like talking to people though about nerdy
Yes,
stuff.
but that is the best possible way, I think. I think, and as much as people, say they put down YouTube, I can't think of a better platform that's brought more people together. Good morning. Look at all these amazing people we've got in the chat at the moment.
Oh
Hello.
yeah,
Good morning.
Latino. Yeah, I know the guy. Been on his channel a few times.
What
He's a good fellow, that Paulie.
he is, but what have you found different over the past 3 years with YouTube? Do you think it's not what it was, or do you think it's just evolving? Are you still enjoying being here?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I still keep in contact with the people that had small channels back then, and
Hmm.
now they have a few of them have really big ones. But yeah, it's I back then it was more a tightly knit community, I think.
Hmm.
But then people kind of drifted a little bit because their channels blew up and all. But it's still fun,
It
People
is.
are people are still the same, and yeah,
I think so, yeah, and it still gives people, opportunity to just do what we're doing now, like you say, just to be able to get on and talk to people on the other side of the world about nerdy stuff. It's just, you think of like back 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do anything like this.
no. Well, if you told me 4 years ago that I would be on a Star Wars chat every Thursday with a Native American woman for over a year, I would have scratched my head, you know. But yeah, me and OG Star Wars have been talking Star Wars EU and going through the comics, the old
Hmm.
comics, every Thursday for over a year now, and I'm having
That's
fun with it.
that's insane, but very very
Yeah,
cool,
we're quite insane.
but in a good way.
Yeah, I hope so.
You were going back to Lord of the Rings. You were saying that you read it when you were younger. Did it have a lasting impression on you? Is it one of the things that kind of stuck with you as you grew up?
Well, I read The Lord of the Rings, and then I was like, there has to be more of this. And then uh, my dad bought me some Terry Brooks books.
Oh, you've read Teddy Brooks.
Oh, I have the whole damn series in hardcover. Because I got hooked on fantasy, and I probably have over 600 books in my
Wow.
apartment now. It's I'm living in a actually half of it is underground, so it's technically a hobbit hole. Hobbit hole with fantasy books and a
That
kitchen.
sounds perfect.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
I'm Bilbo. I don't need to travel at all. I have a chair and some books, and I'm fine. So the COVID stuff hasn't affected me one bit.
yes. See, that's what I found with a lot of people that, were able to entertain themselves. It's you just kind of get on with it, don't you?
Yeah,
Um,
I just and I read um some science article, and they had done research on reading,
mhm.
and out of all the entertainment mediums we have, music, video games, movies, television, and books. And books were absolutely the best for you as a human being, right? Because when you read, you have to. It's kind of like a two-way thing, because you when you're reading, you're very active because you're picturing this what's happening in your head, and you have
Mhm.
to. In my case, you have to translate. And you also have to think and remember what you read before. So it's like a big process going on. But if you're watching TV, especially reality shows, you're passive. You're just sitting there being fed. So it doesn't do anything for your brain, basically.
Yes, you're not as engaged as you are when you're reading, absolutely. And
Yeah,
Colin asked, did you catch the Shannonara TV series?
I watched some of it, and it was bad. It was really, really bad.
I've never watched it. I've read a good selection of the books, but I never watched the TV show. So I was
Yeah,
just wondering
they
if it was worth watching.
they they uh, well, the Shannara world is basically the United States 3,500 years after a nuclear war. So it's turned
Hmm.
into a fantasy world. In that show, it was more like Fallout. So they focused on that bit, that it used to be the United States. And you'd have it was so stupid because they still had DVD players that worked, and they were watching Star Trek, and they were booing Spock because they thought he was an elf. Oh,
That's so dumb.
yes. It was mhm.
Do you find that that tends to be the way, though, when they try and translate, especially fantasy, into TV? They kind of miss the point. I'm a big fan of Discworld, for example.
Yeah.
Absolutely love Terry Pratchett.
Terry
And
Pratchett was the biggest export product from the UK for many, many years back in the, I think it was 80s or early 90s, because of all the Discworld stuff.
hmm.
I've only read a couple though. They didn't really hook me, but I recognized that Terry Pratchett most likely was a genius, because you could see the way he thinks and all.
He was, yeah, he had and I've talked about this in the past, he had such a huge impact on me growing up. I've been reading his books for probably 30 plus years.
Yeah. So Terry Pratchett is is a beast of a writer, really. He's up there with Rowling and other people that are just below Tolkien, I guess. I don't know.
Agreed, and Colin, I agree. Yeah, just pretend that The Watch doesn't exist. I've wiped it from my memory because it was such a terrible TV show. Did you also read C.S. Lewis, for example? Because that's who I started with before I ever got into Tolkien. I read
I actually,
Narnia first.
I remember the old BBC TV show.
Oh, me too. I love
Yeah,
that show.
had one of the most catchy intro musics I've ever heard. Uh, really great. I've read the first. No, I read the ones that tend to be made into movies.
Hmm.
Starts with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then the Dawn Threader thing,
Dawn from it. Yep,
and then
absolutely.
the Silver Chair.
I love the Silver Chair. I really wish that they'd been able to make that into a film.
Yeah, I think that's where the TV show ended, right? With the Silver
I
Chair.
think so. Yeah, I definitely remember it being made, but I don't think they went any further, unfortunately. But that TV show, like you say, it kind of once you watched it, it leaves an impression on you because it
Yeah,
really was that good.
it
Even
has.
Aslan looked great.
Yeah, I think it has to do with. I've noticed that the movies and TV shows that leave an impression is the ones that nail the atmosphere,
Hmm.
because it's the atmosphere kind of that sticks, right? The whole
Yes, yeah, it had the heart. You could
yeah,
see that they actually cared about the IP, which I think we were talking about this in the green room before we went live. Because there's so many IPs and so many franchises that are now being taken over, there's nowhere for fans to go. We were talking about Doctor Who, we were talking about Star Trek, Star Wars, um, Discworld, D&D,
yeah.
Lord of the
Well,
Rings.
yeah, but it's only taken over if you keep buying the new stuff.
Hmm.
A
Yes.
lot of people tend to, oh yeah, it's Marvel and it's new. I have to watch it. I'm like, you don't. You don't have to watch it if it's something you don't like. And I don't know how many Marvel comics there are. Probably 10,000. So
Hmm.
something like that. And I bet you people haven't read all of them. You
Oh
know.
no. Oh no.
So instead of spending money on something new that you most likely won't like, go on eBay and buy some old stuff you haven't read before. Because if you haven't read it before, it's new content. You know?
That that is really good advice, and it's advice that content creators do give out a lot. If you don't like it, don't support it. Project Storytime's got it right. Close
Yeah,
your wallet.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like if you're driving down the highway, right,
Hmm.
and the road is closed. What do? You turn around and drive back.
Yes.
You know,
You don't put your
you
foot
don't.
down and just hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you put your foot down, you're gonna hit the gas pedal and ram straight into it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's if the future's shit, look backwards.
Hmm. That's the problem as well, though. They're trying to go back, and we were talking about this with D&D, for example, where they've tried to change the rules. There's always been set rules with the set races, and because there's been an influx of new fans wanting to change things,
Yeah,
this is where the conflict has come from.
yeah. It's like I said, in the back room, it's like if you're hosting a party and I show up uninvited, but you're polite and say, "Yeah, sure, come in." And then as soon as it starts, I start criticizing the food you've served, calling you an animal killer because you're serving lamb, or the music you're playing isn't good, and all kinds of stuff like that. It's basically what's happening with franchises. There's new people
Hmm.
coming in, complaining about this and that and raising hell, and then it gets changed, which makes me wonder what was it they were a fan of to begin with if they're changing everything anyway. There's nothing
Yes.
left of the stuff they claim to be a fan of.
Do you think it's because it's kind of like the geek chic? People that weren't nerds when they were kids now see that it's kind of trendy to be
Yeah.
geeky again, and they want in on it, but they don't want to put the time into, learning, say, the lore of whatever it is that they're trying to get into.
Yeah, I think so. They just wanna they want the label. If you
Mhm.
look at social media, it's all about labels. That that's where the pronoun stuff happened. You have to put in what kind of which one of the 67 genders you are, and what kind of a sexuality you have, and what you're a fan of, right? I mean, I literally saw someone claiming to be what was it? They, them, lesbian, uh, space river nymph. Yeah, I didn't ask what that meant, but I was like, yeah, this person's insane.
And that's it. Having all these labels don't make you interesting. You can have
Oh,
as many labels as you like. It doesn't make you a good person.
yeah.
And I agree with Soul Assassin. I blame the Big Bang Theory. Yes.
I think, well, I think maybe it has a lot to do with people having a lot of personality issues. So
Hmm.
they're trying to craft a personality based on what would, sell in a sense. And I think a lot of people, including some parents, seem to think life should be like a character generator for a role playing game.
Hmm.
You know, my kid is this and this and that. Read my blog about it. He's a chaotic neutral lesbian elf and he's 4 years old. Stuff like that.
People are loving the Space River Nymph, by the way, in the chat.
Yeah, it's an actual thing.
But I absolutely agree. And as you say, there's no reason to do this. You don't have to, list all of these things that you are. Just be a normal person. Just be a fan.
Yeah,
They claim that there's gatekeeping, but that's not been the case. People have always been welcome into these communities.
yeah. The gatekeeping stuff is complete bullshit because when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, quite a few of my the girls in class and all they played the same video games we did, and they like the Lord of the Rings and they read comics, what have you. And well, look at my D&D group. You know, um, there's 4 women in there.
Agreed. And I bet all of these ladies, if you ask them, would say that they've never been made to feel uncomfortable going into a comic book store. It
Yeah,
just doesn't happen.
I
They try.
actually
Yeah,
talked to
they.
Maura about it on her channel on Friday. I think it was on Friday, but she's never been gate kept out of anything. She was always invited.
Hmm. I've
Yeah,
had the exact same experience. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a myth, that oh, we don't want girls here. It's never been
yeah.
the case.
I think what has happened though is that the people that are ranting about changing franchises and claiming to be fans of this and that, they got gate kept because of their personality.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's like it's not your geekdom, it's you. You know,
Yes.
because you can tell, right, that these are Karens. You know,
And that does seem to be the whole crux of the problem, and that's where this is ours mentality has come from, and we've
yeah,
seen it time and time again, and we're seeing it now. It's becoming more prevalent on social media. We were talking about Lord of the Rings, and we were talking about OneRing.net. Now they seem to be run by Karens.
yeah, yeah. They well, the first big warning sign of that show was when the Tolkien scholars, the well-known ones, the old school ones, they left
Yes,
the production like a month in, all of them, and
not
it's like,
exactly a good sign.
no, it isn't. And then all of a sudden, the OneRing.net starts promoting these new scholars, self-appointed scholars, right, that are doing seminars and stuff, uh, complaining about how the country of India is not represented well in the Lord of the Rings. and
Yes, and
how
that's something that they keep harping on about, isn't it? Representation.
yeah, I mean, what is it? I mean, is it just a skin color? I
Hmm.
would think if you feel the need to be represented in someone else's work, isn't that narcissism?
It does seem a very shallow way to look at it. Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Why? Why would you want to, kind of force yourself into something?
yeah,
Um,
and then that they cater to it, and they put a skin color into a story, and you can kind of tell that they're only doing that to check the boxes, right?
hmm.
So if a character is only in a story to represent a skin color, that means that character will only be skin deep to begin with by default,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
because
why they're
all
bad characters.
absolutely all you're looking at is surface traits. There's no
Yeah,
depth to any of these characters. And Max Relax brings up another good point. He says that's like leaving a franchise to people without knowledge and heart for the franchise. Looking at UKKJJ and RJ.
yep, and Marvel as well.
Hmm.
DC Comics is in big trouble, I believe.
They are, yeah, yeah,
So it kind of happened to Star Wars first when they scrapped the EU and started doing the new stuff. I mean,
yes,
Rogue One is a movie that's being hailed as the good one that Disney did.
yeah, the best of the bunch.
Yeah, that one is a ripoff.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a ripoff from the Dark Forces story, where Kal Katarn and Jan Ors stole the Death Star plans. Jan Ors, Jyn Erso,
Yes.
they just
Now,
changed a couple of letters and whitewashed her. Jan Ors was an Asian.
and you'd think that would have been like the ideal character for them to highlight. I think it would have
Yeah,
made perfect sense. They would have had a female character. They wanted more female led stories, and they would have had someone of a different ethnicity, which they could have
yeah.
highlighted and promoted, and shone the spotlight on.
The the next 7 novels that they were going to publish in the EU had a female protagonist. They had 2 books about Nomi Sunrider coming out. They had a Jaina Solo trilogy and a Darth Zana duology. So that's 7 books with a female protagonist, and then Disney cancels it because they want more women in Star Wars.
Wait a second. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
it
And
is
then
really. Yeah.
and then they attack the fans for not liking Rose Tico, and then we're like, well, you just whitewashed Jan Ors, who was an Asian, so clearly we don't have a problem with Asians,
Mm-mm.
you know?
And I, for what it was, I liked Rogue One, but I thought Jyn Erso was a very bland character. She could have really been swapped out with anybody, and it wouldn't have changed the plot one bit.
Yeah, I always thought the Donnie Yen could have been used more, and it would have been cooler
Yes.
if actually they would have avoided a plot hole because at the beginning of episode 4, Vader shows up and captures Leia and says, several transmissions were beamed aboard this ship. And then you go back to Rogue One, which was a day before. Like,
Hmm.
no transmissions were beamed aboard that ship. There was a disc that got carried physically over to the ship. Vader knows this because he was right behind him. Right? So you have like a little thing there. But if they had the Vader massacre scene happen on the planet where the
Yes,
stuff got beamed up,
I
you would
would
have
have
seen it
loved to have
get
seen
beamed
that
up,
scene.
and you could have had Vader kill off the Rogue One crew one by
Hmm.
one and had a fight against Donnie Yen.
That would have been epic. And people always say that the best scene in that movie is the one with Vader in the corridor.
Yeah, which is a
Imagine if we'd
scene that
seen it on the
actually
beach.
creates a plot hole.
Yeah. And Rin Zero, I agree. He said they don't want female characters; they want their version of female characters.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yep, nailed it. And just to follow up, he said Gina Carano is a good example. Strong female actor and character, but not their strong female character and actress.
No, because she
Absolutely.
speaks her mind. She
Yep.
doesn't. She doesn't chant the cult chant. You know.
And Eastern Bookholder brings up a good point. That she said that character in Rogue One wants nothing to do with the rebellion and suddenly dies, and that's not explained or shown to the viewer.
Yeah, and then she gets credit retroactively for the Death Star destruction, which they've done in books and comics. That yeah, it was all about Jinner, so Luke was just lucky.
Yeah, Luke just it
Yeah,
was all luck for Luke. Yeah, right.
there's no such thing as luck.
And a big thank you to Psycho Dwarf. Thank you, honey. He sent us a $5 super chat. He says Terry Pratchett combines masterclass psychology with fall off your chair humor. Well
Yeah,
said. Yeah, definitely my absolute favorite author.
I
And
I thought it was very clever when he. This is from one of the books I read. I think it's is it Small Gods or
yes, Small
something.
Gods.
They were
Yes, great
checking
book.
what gender the turtle was that's carrying them. So they
Yes.
lowered someone down and they checked, and they're like, okay. And they realized uh, when a new world is born, it's after two of the turtles have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured, yeah, that's the Big Bang Theory. It's literally what it is.
I love jokes like that because it's a clever play on words. That's
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah, that absolutely.
I mean,
Um,
with all these books, you have Terry Brooks, Raymond Feist is another superb one.
yes.
Terry Pratchett, all that stuff is there, and it's usually dirt cheap on eBay. So instead of watching the new stuff that people know is going to be woke and crap and all that, just go back and spend the money on 10 books on eBay or buy an old TV show on DVD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Charity shops, great place to find old books. That's what I picks up a lot. And sometimes you can just pick up things that from authors you've never heard of, and just
Yeah, I've actually earlier this year I realized that there's a lot of movies coming out that I want them to be good, but I know they're not going to be. And I figured every time one of them gets released, instead of watching them, I'll watch an older movie that I've never seen before.
that's a really good
So
idea.
yeah, it works. I was, Black Widow happened, and people were, it's not good, and I was like, okay, so I won't watch it. And then I watched Citizen Kane for the first time instead, which was awesome.
Oh,
So
did you
I
enjoy
got
it?
yeah, I got a big movie experience out of not watching the woke stuff.
Have you personally gotten to the point now where you just don't really get excited, or is there still that little bit of hope within when something gets announced that you think, yes, this could be good, but please don't be woke?
It's gonna be woke,
Hmm.
you know, but the movie there's two movies that I'm kind of excited for. It's the new Ghostbusters
That does look like
and
fun.
Top Gun 2, because I don't think Tom Cruise would let anyone screw with Top Gun,
Hmm.
and he's quite adamant, determined fellow. So I think those two, especially Top Gun, is in good hands.
I think so, especially since they pushed it back as well. I think giving it that little bit of extra time to work on it, I think it's going to work really well.
Yeah,
Um,
and
I've
Cobra Kai has been doing
Cobra
everything
Kai.
right.
Yes, Cobra Kai is a brilliant example of how to take an IP, how to take something that's already established and make it something new, but respect it at the same time. And
Yeah,
still respect the fans.
I'm worried about The Witcher
Yes,
because
I like the first season for what it was, but like you say, I am concerned about season two.
yeah, and I saw one of the show writers like a screenshot of her old Twitter,
Hmm.
and basically her pronouns was basher of the patriarchy,
Wow.
which warning light, you know.
Yeah, that's a big red warning signal going off there.
Yeah, but and then they race swapped Philippa Eilhart Don't know why, but they did.
Yes, that was
And
weird.
but it's not based on the games. I've seen a lot of people think it is.
Yes, I think it's because a lot of people, that's where they mostly know The Witcher from
Yeah,
uh, from the games. But if I remember correctly, it's based far more on the books.
yeah, and yeah, I see people go, yeah, yeah. They, Triss is a redhead, and they, can't have redheads, right?
No,
But
no, this
Triss,
is a redhead free zone,
yeah, but
Hollywood.
Triss isn't a redhead in the books. She's a brunette.
Hmm.
So they actually did that right. That's the only
I'm
time they've done it. I mean, they're doing the Red Sonja show on Netflix eventually,
yes,
and they cast a brunette playing Red
yeah.
Sonja, whose
I
name is Red Sonja because of her red hair.
yes, yeah, clues kind of in the title.
Yeah,
I was, I know it sounds awful, but I was really disappointed with that casting. Um, I did talk about it a little while back when it was first introduced, and I really like Red Sonja. I think she's a great character.
uh, she's awesome. That's the thing. She's very entertaining. Uh, but I wouldn't argue if someone claims she was a Mary Sue, because she is. She gets violated, and then a goddess gives her fighting powers, and she can only keep those powers by not sleeping with someone,
Yes, yes, yes.
and
She
which
has to be
makes
bested in combat. Yeah.
yeah, which makes all the guys want her, which is absolutely a Mary Sue trait. And she's flaunting herself, isn't she? She's wearing a chainmail bikini. That's what started it. Red Sonja. She's ground zero for the chainmail bikini.
I'm all there for the chainmail bikini. I know
Yeah,
it's completely impractical, but I think it looks great.
yeah, it just looks awesome. I mean, think about it. Conan's wearing even less.
He is, yeah. So you can't even
Yeah,
say that, it's sexist because
yeah,
Conan just wears
it's,
a
it,
loincloth.
yeah. And the people she kills wears loincloths too. So it's that door absolutely swings both ways. But yeah, I don't know. Um,
Do you think fantasy as a genre is kind of going out of fashion, or do you think it's just there in the background? I know we've been talking about Lord of the Rings, and obviously we've got this big show that's coming next year that's got a lot of people. It's very polarized. I think just kind of normie fans, people that only know the films, are probably going to enjoy it, but I think people that know the books, know the characters, know the lore, are going to be disappointed.
well, I think the fantasy genre it hasn't gone out of fashion because they're making more and more of it for the screen anyway. And there's actually some new writers, I guess, that are absolutely selling a lot of books. Joe Abercrombie being one of them,
Hmm.
English fellow, writes grim and dark stories. He's awesome. Um, but I think with the Lord of the Rings show, um, I don't think a lot of people realize just how big Tolkien is, because it was a worldwide phenomenon, which means people already identified with it. They
Hmm.
understood it,
They did.
And Tolkien and his work is a national treasure for England, and
Oh,
people
yeah.
in England need to wake up to that and try and protect it, because it worked so well because it is the way it is. If you change it, and if it's already a 10 out of 10 and you change it, you can only go down,
Hmm.
you know and yeah, I don't know. I think the normies will uh will enjoy it, because normies just eat anything anyway, you know which sadly is the bulk of the of the customers, right?
It is,
and,
yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with being a normie. A lot of people have different interests, and they're like, if you just have a casual interest in something, that's just the way it is, because you can't really choose what to like. It just happens, you know?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'm a casual fan of a lot of things, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert, and I certainly wouldn't go into something that I didn't know about and try and change it. And
Yeah.
I agree with Psychodor. Thank you, honey. It says society needs an enema.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't think it does because all the shit comes out of their mouths anyway. It's just reversed.
But just to go back to what you were saying about Tolkien and being, so important, and Tolkien wrote about, what he experienced. He used the British countryside as
Yeah.
inspiration. Where I live, you can see it. Part of the woods, of the Shire. The tower. Um, can be seen very close by where I live. That was the inspiration. Um,
Yet uh, the Shire looks like where I grew up. I grew up on an island outside of the city that I live in now, and it looks like the Shire. It's like an island, a Middle Earth island. It has everything that's in Middle Earth except the Balrogs. You know, but there's mountains, lakes, there's forests, you know, grass fields. It has all of
oh,
it.
that sounds really beautiful. And Chris Persia says, as other smarter people have said, Tolkien tried to create a missing mythology for the British people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you remove the Arthurian legends, you have very little.
Hmm.
I mean, you have some legends about this and that spirit and things like that, right? In the forest,
Yes.
very minor things, but there's no huge mythology, like Norway has with the Norse gods.
That's right. And do you think that's because Britain has been kind of invaded and conquered so many times over the years? And as more people come in, they bring their mythology, they bring their beliefs with them. Do you think that's what
Well,
the reason was?
I think England, uh, the English culture, I guess, has been rebooted a lot due to the invasions because this and that happened and they weren't allowed to worship this and that, right?
Hmm.
So it got taken away, and I think a little. Well, the United States, right? It's one of the youngest countries in in the world. They don't have anything like that, you know. The only ones that have something like that is the Native Americans, but
Hmm.
the the U.S. basically has no mythology. They don't have the fairy tales that we have in Europe. They don't have the legends and folklore, I guess. But
Yes.
which I think is why superhero comics is so big over there because that has replaced it.
Hmm.
So their
That's.
mythology is Marvel and DC.
Hmm. I would agree with that. And again, people talk about comic books, but comic books, at their heart, what are they? They're stories that people have passed on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, and if people love it, don't mess with it. Pe- People love it for a reason, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Do you think that this is going to change, or do you think that we're stuck with this kind of mentality at the moment? Do you think that there's going to be more race swapping, more gender swapping, more forced diversity, or do you think that eventually this is going to come to an end? People will say enough is enough.
Well, people are saying enough is enough because
Hmm.
those woke movies are starting to fail hard now, you know.
Yeah.
And while the high ups at studios, who are all for this kind of politics, might not care, they also have people who own stocks in the company, and they care because money talks, right?
Yes.
And if they're
Absolutely.
constantly losing money because of this stuff, they're going to notice. And yeah, it's. I think politics in general is like a pendulum; it just keeps swinging,
Hmm.
and at this point, it swung very far to the left. you know, and eventually it's going to swing back. But the further on the left it is, the faster it's going to swing back, right? So I'm
Yes.
thinking it's going to be like if it happens, it's going to be like a bad backlash, I think. And
I
the people who will suffer for it isn't the woke people; it's the people they have chosen to represent. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are left behind, looking like the whiners,
Mhm.
even though they didn't whine. It was someone whining on their behalf.
Well, we had kind of examples of this back in the 80s, going back to D&D with the Satanic Panic, people
Yeah,
saying that, these games shouldn't be played because they promote, dealing with the devil and all that sort of nonsense.
I,
We're going back to this kind of Puritan idea.
I have a video on my channel because I put this old video clips and commercials and stuff on it. And there's a religious guy talking about how he threw the plastic miniature of a cleric into the
Hmm.
fireplace, and he heard satanic voices from the fireplace or something when it melted. I'm like, that's one hell of a miniature you have. Where did you get it? It's yeah, it's it's weird, but a very good example though is back in what was it 2008 when Mass Effect came out.
Yes.
People on the right lost their minds because there's a 5 second shot of what's the Asari lady. Um,
Oh, yes, I remember.
Liara's ass
Yes,
is in it.
yes. Yep, you just see a butt for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, and it takes like 50 hours to beat the game, and 3 seconds of an ass. That was a huge uproar, you know. And they wanted it censored. They wanted it, parents were upset. My son saw an ass, right? And then fast forward to the when they released the remakes or the remasters, the people on the left made a ruckus, and Miranda's ass got removed. They changed the shots so you don't get to see Miranda's butt anymore. So it's gone completely in the circle, hasn't it? And
It's
and now we
it's
have the people on
weird,
the
isn't it?
right complaining, oh, you don't get to see the ass, it's woke,
Yes,
right?
bring back the ass. Yes.
Yeah, ass effect. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's just swung around. So the Puritans now are the liberals, you know?
It is, yes. It's it is weird, and it's even harder for people that are kind of in the center as well, because you're being pushed either to the right,
Yeah,
where you don't really want to be because your beliefs don't line up with the left because the left is so on the left now.
yeah, and basically what the left is doing, they're attacking anyone who doesn't agree with them, which means they're pushing. And
Hmm.
when you're on the far left and you push someone, they'll move towards the right, because you're shoving them in that direction.
Absolutely, whether or not their beliefs actually line up with what
Yeah,
you think they do, they just happen to be pushed in that direction, which
it's it's
is
it's like
yeah.
it's like a it's a horseshoe.
Mm.
You have on one tip you have the far right, on one tip you have the far left. If you're a centrist, you're at the bottom, right?
Hmm.
Everything flows downwards, and both sides these days are having diarrhea.
So you're getting it from both sides,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I get called a communist and a Nazi, for being a centrist, because I believe there should be like a balance. The world is always,
That's quite a talent to be both at the same time.
yeah, yeah. I'm gifted.
And Colin's got it right. He says those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
and those that don't learn anything are dumbasses.
yes, or work for Disney
Yeah,
Star
yeah. If
Wars.
you don't learn anything, you get to work for Disney Lucasfilm.
Do you see any hope for these? I know we were talking about it just, but as you say, eventually, and I know other people have spoken about it. We're getting to the point where it is going to swing back. Um,
I think for the superhero stuff, if it If it swings back, it's going to be fine because the superhero stuff gets rebooted and there's multiverses and all that they can
Hmm.
use. Star Wars, no, because it's one continuity. Even Disney said it. Everything is canon. You know, that they said that when they scrapped the EU, that going forward, the comics, the TV shows, the novels were equally canon with the movies,
Hmm.
and they promised a perfect synergy between the products, which didn't happen. But I don't think. Well, if you want to fix Star Wars, you just need to go back to 2014
Hmm.
when they had a solid continuity and just work from that. The thing is, if they do that, they'd have to scrap everything because everything they made contradicts the movies and what came before in some degree or another, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you keep building on that, you'll not have a solid product because you can't build anything solid on a broken foundation.
Yes, and you were telling me in the green room that even things like Clone Wars have made mistakes because
Oh,
they
hell
they
yes.
haven't they haven't followed what's been set out previously.
Yeah. One example is if you watched the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and all, the clones have a chip, which was what caused them to attack the Jedi.
Hmm.
There was never a chip. There's no chip in the novelization, which was the novelizations were basically the director's cut of the movie. They put stuff in there that they didn't have time to put in the movie. And when you watch Revenge of the Sith and the Order 66 thing happens, Palpatine sends like a hologram thing and says, execute Order 66. And he sends it to the clone commanders. And they're like, um, sure, it will be done. And then they walk over to another trooper and says, fire, right? They point at
Hmm.
Kenobi and, fire. So that does that means there's no chip. Because if there was a chip, he would have just activated all of them at once, right? He wouldn't
Yeah,
just contact the leaders and say execute Order 66.
yeah,
He's giving an order.
it's an
You don't
order.
need
Yeah,
to.
the whole
Yeah,
thing would have gone. Yeah.
yeah. If it's a chip, all you need is a signal. Push a button. So there was never any chip. So that whole thing is completely ruined as well. What George was having a go at there was uh, basically the scariness of completely brainwashed troops.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which ties a little bit into what happened in Germany, World War II.
Yes. Yes, because we've always had the Yahtzee analogy running through Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was never any chip, and that alone creates a massive problem, right? And if they had a chip, they were implemented when they were kids. So the Order 66 was already there.
Hmm.
So how could the clones based on that old data in the chip know that Anakin wasn't a Jedi? They wouldn't be able to differentiate, right?
It wouldn't make any difference, no.
Yeah. So in the original stuff, it was just they follow orders. Django Fett even says that they'll get the job done. They'll follow orders blindly. But
And that's the whole point of having the clone army. They were just a disposable army that could be told to go here and follow the orders, don't question.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that was the whole point. They don't
Hmm.
question the orders; they just do it, and they do it well.
Mug says, I like the EU explanation of why the clones went insane.
Well, they followed orders, and later on they deteriorated. You know,
Oh my god. So it's not a purpose. I was only following orders. Yes. Where have we
yeah,
heard that before? Yeah.
yeah.
Anish the Modi, they had booster vaccines for the Order 66 chip.
You know what? The booster vaccines. That's if you think about it, that's the big pharma companies selling DLC. It is. Vaccines come with DLCs now.
That won't be DLC that I'll be getting. So.
Yeah.
Uh, and Colin says, so the chip was supposed to take control of the bodies, or are they treating the clones as robots with programming?
More like, yeah, like a cross between programmed robots, I guess, and
It's
clones.
just, it was to take away the free will, basically, wasn't it? So they don't
Yeah,
question the orders. Yeah.
yeah. Except some of them remove the chip anyway, so they do have free will.
And Project Storytime says, I never liked the clone army. Made more sense when it was just the army of the Empire.
Yeah,
Yes.
they discontinued the clones afterwards because they were too expensive to make.
Hmm.
So that's when they started using stormtroopers. They were just regular recruits.
Yes, and that's another thing that, the Disney trilogy could have really delved into, the backstory of what it was like to be a stormtrooper with Finn. But we never got that. And I thought that would have been a really interesting way to look at a character, to see
Yeah,
what it was like.
well, they did that with the Dark Forces story. Kyle Katarn was a stormtrooper before he joined the rebels, and then he stole the Death Star plans. So it had been done before, but I mean, they turned Finn into the janitor, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
they did Finn dirty with that. And
yeah, and then the
of all
white
the
guy.
characters, he was the most interesting.
Yeah, basically, he's a slave and escapes with Poe, and then Poe was a white guy or something, gives him his name. You know,
It's kind of racist when you think about it, isn't it?
yeah. It's like here's your name and here's a jacket for you. Now run off. You're
It's
free.
be free.
Yeah,
Finn is the single wasted character in Star Wars history. I
yeah.
agree. I thought he could have been so much better, and he was the one character from that trilogy that I actually was interested in. But nope,
Imagine playing that part though. It has to be the easiest part ever because all his lines is woo or Ray. You know, that's pretty much all he yells.
and Mark says Finn got screwed. He really
Yeah.
did. Just before we finish today, what would you say to somebody who's a fan of, say, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings? Do you say go back, enjoy the books, enjoy the films,
Well,
but close your wallet to the new stuff? Is that
well, for Star Wars, right? If you don't like the new stuff, and it's okay to like the new stuff, but if you don't like it and you want classic Star Wars, right? There's about what is it, 250 Star Wars novels,
mm-hmm.
all in all. Even the worst ones feel like Star Wars, actually. So you have 250 novels, you have probably a thousand comics, and about 40 video games. And if you think about it, if you never read any of it or played the games, that's like it's gonna take you 10 years to get through all of it.
It
So
is.
that's technically 10 years of Star Wars content that's new to you.
And this is stuff that Disney said didn't exist. Don't forget.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It's not there,
Yeah,
guys. Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah, and they're just ripping it off. I mean, Ezra from the Rebels show, his whole starting point, the backstory, they just took it from Wedge, from one of the comics. It's identical. Wedge at the marketplace, stealing and running away from the Empire. It's just they just copy it. And the Mandalorian characters, his backstory, when he gets found by the Mandalorians and all,
Hmm.
uh, that's from the Django Fett backstory comic. You could see it clear as day when you read the comic. It has the same shots too.
So all they've done basically is cherry pick ideas of
Yeah,
something that they
yeah.
said didn't exist.
And then they claim, yeah, when I created this and that, and I'm like, you didn't create anything. You read a comic, you know. But as for the Lord of the Rings, I think the uh, the show that's coming out, even if it's great or bad, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the books
No, that is
because
true.
it's not written by Tolkien, so it's not canon, right? It's just
Hmm.
uh, you know treat it as a spin-off. as for the other stuff, it's like I said, if you don't like the new stuff, spend your money on the old stuff.
Hmm.
It's really simple. Just pay for the stuff you like, and eventually, when you know the things go to hell for those franchises, which they are. I mean, DC and Marvel are tanking hard on the
Hmm.
comic front.
Yes, they are.
Eventually, they're gonna have to do something, or they won't have jobs. You know, so I think, yeah, just go back and get the good stuff that was widely popular for a reason.
Hmm.
And there's if you like fantasy, there's so many writers out there with series that are finished. I mean, read the Wheel of Time series. It's 14 bricks, but it's amazing. You know,
I'd say that is solid advice. And as you say, there is so much undiscovered stuff out there that people don't know about it. Talk to
yeah,
fans, talk to, YouTubers, get recommendations. You don't have to
yeah.
watch or buy the stuff that you don't like. And
And
going back to
D
Lord of
and
the
D,
Rings, yep.
D&D as well. If you don't like the new stuff, which is probably the most dumbed down edition I've ever seen, if you don't like that, go get the third edition or second edition, what have you. You can find it on eBay or thrift stores, whatever. All you need is the rule books, and then it's up to you. You know?
Hmm. Absolutely. And what we always say, close your wallet. And just going back to the Lord of the Rings, we had three amazing films. This year it's the 20th anniversary of the Fellowship of the Rings.
Oh,
On the
damn.
19th of December. You wouldn't believe that the film is 20 years old already. But you'd be hard pressed to find a better fantasy trilogy because Peter Jackson put so much care into making these films.
Yeah, he stuck to the source material as best he could.
Hmm.
And movies, they are a different medium than books, so you have to have changes because you can't do inner monologue and stuff on the screen, all kinds of stuff like that. So I think Peter Jackson did uh, a 10 out of 10 job
I'd
when he
agree.
did that.
Yeah, I am very, very skeptical about the Amazon. One, because everything that we've heard about it, there's been very bad publicity, uh, and because they're
Yeah,
just throwing so much money at it.
yeah, they're like going, yeah, Sauron was non-binary and gender fluid, what have you, and I'm like, yeah, that's warning lights flashing left and right.
Yes, yes, just as Tolkien envisioned him. Yes.
Yeah, because people talked a lot about gender fluidity back in the 1930s. That was their focus. Was nothing else on their mind, like World War II or
Mhm.
anything back
Nope.
then.
Nope.
It's like, yeah, they stormed the beaches of Normandy. I wonder what pronouns they had.
I really hope that eventually we do see this kind of swing back to more sensible times. As you say, it's been pushed so far now; it is starting to buckle, and I am glad to see there is pushback against it.
Well, we've reached a time when the term common sense uh, is not common at all. It's a plot hole.
Hmm.
You know, it's yeah. Well, we could talk all week about the insanity, you know, but it's impossible not to see it now, right? It's,
It is, and until I got onto YouTube, I was thinking, am I the only one thinking this? Am I insane? But fortunately, no. There are plenty of like-minded people. You just have to find them.
yeah, and they're everywhere, and more and more. I mean, I have a friend that's she's a lesbian, and she hates all this stuff
Hmm.
because it makes her and other lesbians look bad.
Pandering, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it
so
comes
she
down to.
hates this crap, and she absolutely hates the fact that women aren't allowed to look at women look like women anymore.
Mm-hmm.
because she
That's
happens to like women that
that's
look
been a
good.
big thing. Yes.
Yeah, it's like cover them up from head to toe, and so the
Or
male
make them
gaze won't.
masculine. Yes.
Yeah, and then you have the lesbians go, well, we want to see too.
Yes. What about us?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Stig, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun, and thanks to the chat as well for being very good company.
The chat have been on fire today, as always. Thank you, guys. What have you got coming up?
Um, well, coffee chat on OG Star Wars on Thursday, which on Thursday it would have started 7 minutes from now. So that's when you know when it happens. And on Fridays, I'm on Amara's channel, Mara Jade,
Ah,
Jade
awesome.
Shadow. We're talking about the Cringe Factory, which, well, basically we'll rip into 3 topics that were the most stupid of the week. And these days, it's a gold mine. We have to leave stuff out.
Yes, I was
I
going
don't
to
know.
say, how do you narrow it down to just 3?
I don't know. I don't know. She does that. I just show up and say offensive things. And sometimes on Saturdays, Miss Martin Muses does the Lord of the Rings show, where
Awesome.
we're talking chapter by chapter about the Lord of the Rings books, which is a lot of fun. We have Lady Gravemaster on, Lady Toriel, who's in the chat. She shows up quite often, and Rennie. So that's
That is cool.
very cool. Other than that, I just pop on to stuff if people ask me on or whatever, and I'm awake. You know.
Well, I'm very, very honoured that you said yes today. I've been wanting to get to chat to you for quite a long time. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Just ask. I'm shit at saying no, right? Which is why I'm on YouTube.
Yes, hence the 3 years later. Yes.
Yeah.
And a big thank you to JPRPH1. Thank you, and he sent us a 199 super chat. It says, "Been listening on my TV. Great stream. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you very much." And guys, thank you so much in the chat. You guys have been absolutely fantastic today. Awesome comments. I've been grabbing as many of them as I can. So a massive, massive thank you to you guys. A huge thank you to my fantastic guest today. It was so good to get to chat to him. I knew that I needed somebody who knew the fantasy genre, who knew the sci-fi genre, and Stig was absolutely perfect. So thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely read too much. That's the thing.
There's
So
no such thing as reading too much.
no, that's true.
So, guys, a massive thank you to everybody who sent super stickers and super chats today. You guys are the best as always. Please subscribe to Stig. Follow him on Twitter to keep up to date with everything that he's doing. And I will be back Wednesday morning. So, guys, have a fantastic rest of your Monday and look after each other, I think is the best way to end.
Yeah. Take care and be well, and goodbye there.
Bye, guys.